Boom, 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 boom. Rich, I don't know about you, man, but I love that countdown. It kind of brings me down. And when that music jumps in, I see my face, I see your face, man. I get automatically hyped. How you doing, my man?
I'm good. How about you?
Man, I'm doing great. I'm doing great. You know, I want to thank everybody for this Sunday, to all my LinkedIn family, my Facebook followers, our YouTube users, our Twitters on Twitter, and the Twitchers. Ladies and gentlemen, it is Richard the Innovator Cabrera out of California and me, Dwelyn the Glue, residing here in Phoenix, Arizona. And we want to thank you for tuning in on this Sunday, this first week of Hispanic Heritage Month, which we forgot to mention last show, and that's okay. Rich and I mentioned so many things about what we're being involved in. So, Rich, before we bring our guests out, how have you been, man?
I'm good. Spent a few days in Nashville this week, and right, Music City. Yeah,
that's right.
And you know, it's exciting time for me professionally, and you know, taking on the role that I have now and being able to you know, get out there and meet people. You know, after a few years of being locked up, it's nice to be able to get out and experience people, right?
Right, exactly. I totally agree with that. Yeah, you say locked up, and you know what's funny, Rich? That we were all locked up, and I think we were all locked inside ourselves at one point in time. And you know, it gave us a lot to ponder on a lot of things that happened this past couple of years. You know, with COVID-19, and you know, it was you know, good and bad. It was the year of entrepreneurship, which was 2020, and I always like to say, man, you know, the year of entrepreneurship 2020. I guess everybody had 2020 vision. So, you know, I like to say that. So, yeah, man, congratulations once again in your role. You know, you get to, as myself, you get to work on your legacy. You know.
Yeah. You know, and I think that's the tough part is you know, always just being challenged to do, you know, new and different things is something that you know, it's hard to answer to that all the time. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Sometimes you feel like, okay, I'm comfortable. I knew what I'm doing. I got my whole deal down. And then there's always that one little challenge that comes up, and you're like, okay, now what? You know. But I love it because without those challenges, we got no growth. You know. So I love that.
True. That's true. As the saying goes, if it doesn't challenge you, it doesn't change you. Mm-hmm. You know, and I always say that there is no competition, and not to be arrogant, it's just that I'm my own competition. So I want to be better than what I was yesterday. So man, yeah, much congrats to you. And then you know, before break, I guess Richard, you and I will be in 2 weeks. Where are you and I going to be, my man?
We will be in Indy. How you liking that?
I'm loving it, man. Everything is booked and ready. You know, I'm just ready. I've never spent time in the Indianapolis area. I'm only going to be there for a couple of days, but you know, it'd be great to see you in person again, other than waiting a whole year to go to NANT DTX that we have in Las Vegas every year, which will be DTX 40 coming this March. So it get a good chance for you and I to see each other. And ladies and gentlemen, Rich and I won't be doing the show, but we will be side by side. We'll be side by side on a panel for home hemodialysis. And I'm excited. I'm excited about that because, man, that's where you really, more than me, get to really shine. And like that star going to shine bright.
Yeah, you know, and that's where my passion is. That's what I love to do is to work with different types of home dialysis. And I'll be honest, I'm looking forward to spending time with Michelle Carver as well while we're there.
Yeah, most definitely. Yes.
She's an awesome person, and she's going to be moderating our discussion there. And she's probably one of the smartest people I know in terms of home, especially. And just love to hear her perception of things and how they're going, and just really getting that time to spend with her. It's going to be cool. I'm looking forward to it.
Well, you got to realize with me, on that panel, I have the less experience, but I can bring a technician's, perspective, and I have a little experience. I have a little bit of experience, not as much as you all, which is not an issue, not a problem, because, like me, I live by that saying, if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. So I will not be the smartest person in that room and on that panel, but I'm definitely going to be able to bring it, and I mentioned before, Rich, that, I'll be in Seattle the week after that. Celebrate with Northwest Kidney Center. There's 60 years at their gala that they have it on October 15th. I said the date wrong in our last show, and I apologize to Northwest Kidney Center in Seattle, Washington, Emerald City. That gala will be on October 15th. I myself, in the fourth muddler, I get a chance to work with a mixologist and make a perfect mixed drink and try to sell it to the crowd and raise the most money. We'll be putting that link in the show later on, as far as anybody want to celebrate that, donate, or just give your props and share. Ladies and gentlemen, enough about Rich and myself. All the way from the UK, we have Mr. Fez. So, Mr. Fez, let's bring Mr. Fez on in. Fez, how you doing, my man?
Hi guys, I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing great. First and foremost, like I said to you backstage, I want to thank you for joining us on the Rich and Dwelyn show this Sunday. We're loving it here. As you know, we show our platform on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube. So, Fez, I want you to meet Mr. Richard the Innovator Cabrera. Gentlemen, take it away. I'm doing great.
Hey, how you doing? I'm excited to meet you. I've heard a lot about you, from our last show, especially. I'm excited that you were able to make it all the way from the UK and join us this morning. And I say this morning, I know it's probably about a 10-hour time difference for you, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah, so here it's about 7:30 in the evening.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. After this, getting in my pajamas and getting ready for bed, watching TV shows, take my medication, and go to sleep.
Now, whereabouts are you in exactly? Where do you reside?
So I'm in the county of Lancashire, which is like the northwest of England. So some of the major cities, Manchester, Liverpool, that kind of region, the northwest.
Nice.
Wow.
All right. Wow. Well, welcome to the show, and thank you for being with us today. And we're excited to get to know you. Am I not mistaken there, Dwelyn?
Most definitely, man. So so like we always like to say with everyone, like I told you, let's say 2 to 3 minutes, just to explain to everyone, our audience, which is the world. Tell them who you are. Think of it as an elevator speech, because I purposely believe that every day is an interview, even as we speak right now. So just let the world know who you are, man. You should have worn your pajamas. That's what you should have did.
So my name's Fez. I was actually born with CKD. I had reflux as a baby. I had my first transplant when I was 3 years old.
Wow.
I had to have CAPD and APD during high school. During that time, because I was missing quite a lot of schooling at the time, my father decided to be a live donor to myself. So in the millennium, on Star Wars Day, I got my father's kidney. So yeah, that was...
Congratulations. Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
So yeah, the first couple of years were a bit bumpy, to say the least. But that settled down, thankfully. Then went on to further studies at university. Unfortunately, during my second year of university, my father's kidney decided to pack it in, basically, and was like, nah, I'm going to hit the road now. So then I had to, in essence, return home and started HD, did HD in center for a very short stint. Then moved home, started doing home dialysis, HD at home, sorry. And then moved on further to nocturnal HD. During this time, when I was on HD and had left university, I was kind of at a crossroads in my life of what I was going to do, because I hadn't technically qualified in anything. I started volunteering with the encouragement of my mother and the rest of my family as well. And I qualified to be a youth worker. From there, I joined other organizations, first locally with my Kidney Patient Association, then with NHSBT as an organ donation ambassador, then with Kidney Research UK, being a community ambassador for them and being a lay research reader for them. I took a couple of study courses as well, so became a peer leader with NHS England and Improvement. And now I am the chairperson for a regional group called RPlan, which is Renal Patient-Led Advisory Network. And we're based in the Northwest, and we are embedded in the Northwest Kidney Network. So we have a powerful patient voice there. I've done public speaking. I've done local, regional, national. I'm waiting for that international call, lads. So if you ever need someone from England, give me a call. But yeah,
well, this is your interview for the world. This is your interview for the world. Yeah. So hey,
yeah, you never know, right?
That's right. Everybody's watching, always watching.
So yeah, I mean, it's been a turbulent yet educational ride. This life has. But I just like to basically try and support and advocate and help other patients wherever possible, really, whether that be for people of diverse communities or impoverished communities who may not be engaged as well as they can be, or just generally folk who present late into an illness. So anyone really who needs help, who needs support, can reach out.
Right.
That's awesome.
That's good.
That's awesome. So now, yes. I know that you said, like, you just went through your history. You've been on quite a few different types of dialysis. Talk to us a little bit about, did you have a favorite, or which one would it have been? And I'm sure, things change throughout your lifetime, right? So it really depends on what you've got going on, but talk to us a little bit about that and the different choices that you made.
So when you say pick a favorite, it's like picking a favorite worst enemy to me personally. So which one was my favorite? So I guess when I was a teenager, PD seemed the most sensible idea. Because I had extensive dialysis beforehand. So when I was very, very young, I maybe had PD for about a month or two. So it didn't really affect me in the long term. So PD made sense. CAPD didn't, because I had to obviously take equipment into school and find a place to dialyze and fit it all in the lunch hour. And so that was quite practical. APD, again, it had its pros and it had its cons. Yes, I could do it at home and it was a lot easier. I still had a lot of support from my family and my parents at that time. I was about 13, 14 approximately. But they were like long nights. So they were 12-hour nights, basically, for 6 nights a week. I got 1 day off, which was generally weekend. So it was quite isolating at times. I didn't get to join in activities as other young people did. I kind of, again, as mentioned earlier, kind of fell behind with the schooling and the friendship making and the networking and things like that. But I think APD practically worked better at that age for myself and to be able to attend school. So I'd go on potentially. I'd potentially go on around 7 p.m.-ish, so around this time, really, to be ready to get off at 7 a.m. to then get ready for school and do all that kind of stuff. This time round, I really hated in-center HD, which is why I said I did it for a really, really short time. It was literally maybe a week or two before I was like, I really hated it.
Wow.
Talk about motivation.
right. And honesty. Yeah.
I tried to find the most quickest way out of that, basically, while still being able to get my dialysis. So I had a conversation with my renal team and I was like, this is not going to work long term. But there's going to be other options here. So I spoke to them. I also spoke to other renal friends that I have here in the country. And they kind of told me a lot about home hemodialysis, and how it is practically basically kind of more freedom and more flexibility, and you're not stuck to a rigid regime, and you can kind of do it whenever you're most comfortable, obviously after the appropriate training has been done. So I was like, okay, cool, let's do that. Admittedly, placing needles in myself wasn't the most fun thing to have to learn. But I thought, if this is going to be my life for a period of time, God knows how long, it's better to get used to it quick. So I did. I did get adequate and brilliant support from my renal team, and it was wonderful. I cannot be more grateful to my team. But then when I did get home, I was realizing, even though it was a 4-hour session at home, and yes, I could watch Netflix at the same time and get as many brews as I wanted, get the brewing kit, and shout down the stairs to my mom if I wanted something, or one of my brothers. It was still like 5-6 hours after you strip the machine and put it through the wash and done all the setup and dismantling, and it was still taking a large chunk of the day.
Right.
And that's when I started communicating more with more patients that I knew, and also, again, my renal team. And I found out about nocturnal home HD. And I was like, cool, this sounds good. How can I do that? So again, went through the procedures of learning the differences and, having to change certain things like blood clotting, so my blood wouldn't clot in the machine overnight and things like that. And when I was meant to start nocturnal hemodialysis, my fistula started to play up. And then that was like, so what do we do now? So I got admitted, and they tried to fix it, and that unfortunately didn't work. And I ended up with a CVC line. And I quite liked my CV. Like, obviously, everyone's personal choice is their personal choice. I got, no pun intended, quite attached to my CVC line.
I like that.
Yeah.
I was a few seconds late, but I got that.
Yeah. I enjoyed it. In the sense that I found it much easier to connect and disconnect. Yes, there was awkwardness when coming to showering and things like that. But then again, contacting people and talking to people and finding out about waterproof dressings, that helped. Granted, I could not submerge in water, so it wasn't a good idea to go swimming in it or anything like that. But I could still take a shower, and that was fine as long as I was keeping clean. So yeah, I think once I started nocturnal, and I also had my CVC line, and kind of had those conversations with my multidisciplinary team around having a CVC line long term, I think they got used to. I think they got used to the fact that A, I know what I'm doing, and B, I'm going to be as safe as possible whilst I'm at home. So they kind of, whether they liked it or not, I'm not sure, but they accepted that I was going to keep it and not get another fistula.
I see.
And yeah, so I dialyzed at home maybe six years, potentially around there. And then in 2020, during the pandemic, the transplant scheme had closed because of the pandemic.
Yes.
So I assumed, okay, it's going to be another few years at least. But then randomly got a phone call in the middle of the night in July in 2020. And my mom passed me the phone, and it was maybe 6 a.m. ish, roughly. And it was like, it's for you. And I was like, who's going to be ringing me at 6 a.m.? We restarted the transplant program, and we might have a transplant for you.
That's good.
Okay. What do I do? Because there's a global pandemic. So what's the process here? So they were like, basically, you can get dropped off at the entrance of the hospital, but no one can come with you. Make sure you have like a decent amount or worth of comfortable clothing, food and drink, etc. All your charges for your electronic items. So we did. My brother and my mom took me to the hospital, dropped me off on the doorstep, give me a hug. and then I just kept them up to date via Zoom or mobile phone, WhatsApp messages, etc. And yeah, so my third transplant was a pandemic transplant. My second one was as mentioned, on Star Wars Day in the year 2000. And my first one, funnily enough, was on April Fool's Day, which almost didn't happen. Because my dad hung up on them thinking it was an April Fool's prank.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Thankfully, my mother picked him the second time, and she's like, "Yeah, this is not a prank. We should take him in."
Right.
Yeah, that's kind of how things have happened for me, really.
Right.
Well, that's
wow.
awesome.
Yeah, that's a story. I don't mean to cut you, gentlemen off. Let me address that. I like that. So funny. Let me address that. Let me address our comments. I'm so sorry, man. I'm having a great time. We want to say hello to Mr. Anthony out of Virginia, who's the CEO of the Kidney Trails. Anthony said he's going to Nashville in December as well. We also have Rachel McKeon. She's in the Emerald City of Northwest Kidney City of Seattle, Washington. I'll be getting a chance to meet Rachel in 3 weeks right now. And you got Richard. He's from California. He says, "Hey, welcome to the show." Dr. Yolanda Bogarrett. She is a nephrologist in the great state of Denver, Colorado. And I had the privilege to meet this young lady on LinkedIn, and she'll be a guest on our show coming in the near future, very near. And we have the glitter bug, Dr. Nupi out of the UK as well. We want to say thank you for joining us. Rachel says, she says, Fez, it's a great way for you to advocate. You are amazing. Richard said he loves to hear successful home dialysis stories. Rachel says, way to learn self-cannulation. And we got Dr. Nupi again, the glitter bug, all the way from the UK, spread her glitter. Thank you so much, man. Thank you. We appreciate it.
Yeah, so I have a question for you, because I know that, I worked most of my career in the home arena. And, I know here in the United States, home nocturnal is probably one of the most underutilized, like nocturnal home hemodialysis, underutilized, but most beneficial. It's what we in the business call the gold standard, right? And we hear a lot that it's the clinicians that are really hesitant to suggest that nocturnal therapy, because they're always worried that well, what if a needle comes out, or what if something bad happens while the patient is sleeping? Which for me, my response has always been, well, most dialysis patients, when they get on the machine, the first thing they do is fall asleep. So I thought about it in that sense. But I'm curious to see, in the UK, is that a different outlook for from a clinical point of view, or from do you hear that from doctors and nurses, or do they encourage it in the UK?
So it is being encouraged more. I think it could be encouraged even more. And there are set kind of targets, so to speak, that people want to hit when it comes to home therapies here. They do include HD and PD. I think that's one way to get around that. But yeah, I think it would be cool for people to encourage it more and present it more as potentially even a first option or a second option, as opposed to you got to come in center now for the rest of your life. So maybe if we change the presentation of how dialysis can be done, I think that would help anywhere and everywhere. There is sometimes a bit of a postcode lottery depending on where you live and what facilities are available and the water quality, etc. So it's not always possible. It can be geographically a little bit difficult depending on your circumstances, but generally I feel it is presented very well. More can be done for sure. For me, because I was born and kind of raised into this kidney world, I kind of have a lot of different networks that I can reach into and ask questions. So I'm not strictly just asking my renal team, because I think having that lived experience and asking actual patients as well, I find at times, not always, but at times more beneficial than actually speaking to a doctor, a nurse, a dietitian, etc. Because as much as medical professionals may know the processes, and how to be safe, etc. They can't tell you what it feels like. So
That's true. That's true.
they can't tell you like how you're gonna feel afterwards, after a session, after a 4-hour session, or the difference between a 4-hour session and pulling off fluids if you got to pull off fluids, to a 9-hour session where you can do it a lot slower overnight in your sleep whilst watching a Netflix series. Up to you. So there's a lot of different ways I think it could be potentially presented. But I think safety obviously is very paramount, and knowing what to do if things go wrong is always good to learn, and always good to understand, before you kind of jump in straight away and do something.
I hear that. Wow. That's great. You know, Fez, Dr. Yolanda Bulgaria, she said, Fez, I so love to hear how much you advocate for yourself to do other modalities. She said she only has one nocturnal home hemo patient, and she really had to push the large company she works with, I guess, in force of doing that. She said she's highly recommended AV fishers because she's seen bad blood infections, affect kidney patients. Thank you, Dr. Yolanda Bulgaria. Thank you so much for saying that.
Yeah, no, and I think my experience with some of the different clinicians out there, not as everybody is comfortable as Dr. Bogarrett is, and so I think that's important to hear your story, Fez, because I think we hear it all the time in the UK or about the UK and about other countries, is that they do dialysis so much better than us, right, in different places around the world. And so I'm always trying to learn from people in other parts of the world that if they do it better, I want to know from their experience. And you said something that really stuck out to me, in that sometimes it's better to hear from somebody who's going through it themselves, right? To tell you what it feels like. I've found that like first person perspective is it's more credible than anything any of us that haven't gone through it. No matter how much you're way more credible because you've experienced it. I know you talked about being an advocate and doing a lot of different speaking engagements, but I mean, do you get to share that in the UK with other patients as well, your experience?
Yeah, I've had like pre-pandemic a lot, and also now slowly post. Well, we're still technically, but yeah, slowly now I'm also kind of going out a little bit more. But in short, yes, I've talked locally, regionally, nationally. So yeah, I get to share my story whenever anyone approaches me. I'm more than happy to kind of talk to people. I think it's one of the best ways to kind of, because everyone is an individual and not everything will be appropriate for every individual. I think it's good to give as many broad aspects as you can to an illness. So in this case, obviously kidneys and dialysis and transplant. And then they know there are choices available. Because sometimes some patients don't know there are choices available. And that might just be because they haven't engaged, or they don't have the energy to engage, or they may not fully be absorbing all the information that may be given to them at one time. So I think it is very helpful to talk to other patients as well. So yeah, I've had opportunities to go out there. I've talked on many different platforms, in person too. And yeah, I find it really helpful, not only for me, because it's me paying it forward and giving it back to the community, but hopefully for others to also listen to as well. And they may learn even one little thing that they can do that they thought they couldn't, for example. And if that helps that one person in that one little aspect in their lives, then that's a win.
Yeah.
Awesome. I like that, man. You're really serving it up good, man. We loving it. Most definitely.
Yeah.
No, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but yeah, no, I think that's something that I've felt like almost therapeutic in sharing stories, because like mine isn't a personal story, but mine was well, not me personally, but more helping my dad cope with dialysis and having him as a home dialysis patient as well. And so I've always felt like you know, there's an important piece to talk about when you're talking about home dialysis, and that's, you know, the role of the support system. How did you implement your support system? I mean, I know you talked about learning how to self-cannulate, but how important was it to have, you know, your family, like you mentioned, your brother and your mom around, and your dad around? I mean, how important was it to have them play an active role in your life as a dialysis patient?
Massive.
Hmm.
I don't even know if I have the proper words to really communicate how important my family have been in my life. From a young child to even now, they have supported and helped me and encouraged me so much in many different aspects of my life. My best friend, as corny as that sounds, it's true. I mean, she's the one that kind of encouraged me to go out and to volunteer after, you know, I was having a dark time after university because I didn't finish university. My brother went with me to Greece whilst I was on dialysis because he could tell, you know what, he's having a bit of a crappy time. Granted, he's on nocturnal, but he's not left the country in ages, and a bit of sunshine might do him some good. So he kind of helped me and supported me in planning that. Even though he didn't know much about dialysis itself, when it came to the planning, he was like, he sorted out the flights and the dates and things like that. And he just said, tell me what dates we need for your sessions, and I'll plan everything else. And that was a massive weight off my shoulders. And I'm like, okay, cool. So he's going to sort out the flights, he'll sort out the hotel, he'll sort out currency exchange and all that kind of jazz. I've just got to concentrate on where and when I'm going to have my sessions and the process I have to do for that. So that made that really helpful. So yeah, my family have been amazing throughout my life. When I think back now to when I was very small, I wonder what it was like for my brothers. So I don't have any sisters; we're all boys. But I wonder what it was like for them, because my parents had to do a lot of toing and froing from the hospital for me, because I was getting a lot of UTIs and other things were going on, and it must have been really hard for them at the time. Because their mom and dad weren't around when kind of they should have been. But unfortunately, they had to take care of me. So I understand the sacrifices they had to make as well, as adapting mentally to that, of having a sibling who has a chronic illness. And then again, everything that my parents have had to go through, you know, just the traveling, the learning all the medical lingo, what this test means, what that blood result means. So it's been a massive learning curve for, I think, all of us in a sense, and I'm utterly grateful to my whole family for everything they have done for me, and still do to this day.
Yeah, you know, and I you know, I always ask about family because I feel like, you know, so many times you know, we focus on patient as all, you know, of course, because you're the patient, right? And a lot of times I think we forget to address the impact that it has on the rest of our family, and you know, in a lot of cases it's like that they really hold you up, right? They really hold you up through the whole process, and I feel like it's always a good thing to give a shout out to the people who helped you get through it and get through all of your transplants and deal with all those things, because it's not easy. It's not easy.
And also the light relief that they bring.
Yeah.
So whether it be like cousins or aunties and uncles and things like that, they may not be always there all the time, but when they are there, they kind of lift your mood as well. Being around first cousins, etc., having an extended family, they may not think of it like that, but when you receive it, and it's just like, wow, okay, cool, I can be normal with them. Whereas with the outside world, so to speak, sometimes I'm a bit more hesitant, I'll be honest. But with my family, I'm quite straightforward. But they've grown to, I think, and I hope, accept who I am and as I am. Granted, they're all, like, we're all human beings, so we all have things we can learn on and improve on. And I guess talking to family helps you learn and improve on those things. But I think they're more flexible in their understanding when you are being a bit of a pain in the you-know-whats. Whereas the outside,
not really. No, that doesn't happen.
I think are maybe slightly less tolerable to those kind of things. So even those kind of things, I think, it's hard to kind of articulate how much my family, extended family, and support system have been there for me. Like even the minute things they may not see as a big deal are a massive deal.
Yeah.
Wow, man, that's great. I want to take a shout out to Desiree Cook. She's been a connection of mine on LinkedIn. I forgot where you reside at, Desiree, so my apologies. Emily Michelik, sorry, Emily Michelik. She's in Austin, Texas. She says, "Thanks for sharing your story, Fez. Always a great time hearing from patients on how they're doing and how they learn information to advocate for themselves. She said this info helps us advocate more for all patients." She says she's learning to advocate for. She says she's learning to advocate more constantly and learning. Donna Bulgaria has a question. She says, "How can providers best bridge the gap in information knowledge for patients and family?" She said, "And help excite patients to do home modalities." So I guess she pretty much asking how can the providers know from the family have to get the patients or the individuals who do home dialysis to get them more encouraged. So what encouraged you? Well, what I get from you is when you first mentioned about hemo, you was like, "Nah, this isn't for me." So you already knew. So I guess what Dr. Bulgaria is asking, and what was that shift change for you, or what motivated you even more, from your family to help you, to progress into home modalities?
So I think my situation had probably a lot to do with it. So I was still fairly young, considering the cohort of patients. I still wanted to kind of live some sort of life, be as active as I possibly could, which led to the volunteering and led to becoming a youth worker. And I think if I didn't have that flexibility and that freedom, and the clearance levels of nocturnal, I think even looking at the numbers can sometimes put patients at like, "Oh, okay, so this is the difference it makes."
Yes, because numbers don't lie. Numbers don't lie.
Yeah, numbers don't lie. But yeah, also just again, generally the freedom, the flexibility, to be able to maybe have a sneaky extra day off here and there, because once you get home, just plug in and you'll be all right. So yeah, like I'm not a perfect person. I didn't to be a perfect patient. I did check things out. I did, experiment a little bit here and there. To see what different settings would do and how that would change how I feel. But I learned by doing. So once you left me at home, I learned by doing. So yeah, I think numbers, but also like knowing that you have those freedoms, you have that choice of, if you want a bit of a late night, fine, have a bit of a late night, but then remember to dialyze afterwards. Like
I see. That's it.
Or if you don't want a night out, for example, but you've got a day out with friends going to play crazy golf or whatever it might be, just remember when you got home, just clip in for a couple of hours. And because it's at home, you can do it as frequently as you need. So there's the flexibility to it as well. So yeah, I think giving more pros than cons and being worrying about needles coming out, etc., as much as it is something to consider, most definitely, I think try and start with the pros of what could work, how it could improve your quality of life, how much flexibility it can give you, and if you need to, like you said, numbers don't lie. So, if you're getting good clearances and you're on for a long amount of time, the bigger molecules are going to get cleaned out, and your potassium levels might chill out a little bit, and you might be able to have that extra bag of chips or crisps or whatever you call them in America. So yeah, you can have that extra little treat then, whether that if you're getting ready for a festival, for example, whether it be Christmas
right.
or, you know, Hanukkah or Eid or whatever you might celebrate. If there's food involved, you want to be able to join in. I know I did. So I would dialyze the night before, and then on the actual day I'd pick out, because I'd know I'd be okay. The machine was, you know, in the house. So it's just little things like that. Also, it's a really great hangover cure.
I love it. You know what? So I don't mean to cut you off, but so what I'm getting from you is your selling point to any individual who is possibly doing hemodialysis to say, hey, you do know that you get freedom of choice, flexibility. You get a chance to educate yourself, to experiment to a certain extent, not against doctors' advice, but and we the world we respect your honesty, because I love what you said. You said, man, I'm not a perfect person, and I have not met the perfect person yet. I would like to say that I have a little bit of experience with home hemo, PD, in-center, acutes, chronic, etc. But in my clinic here in the Phoenix, Arizona area, I mentioned to one young lady, I said, hey, I think it would work great if you do home, and not push it off on her, but just mention it to her. And and there was no excuse. She just said, Dwelyn, I just prefer to leave this here and keep it separate from my family. And she has a little girl, and she said, I don't want to be more of a burden. And I'm quite sure Rich can relate to baby, and I'm quite sure if we talk about bridging the gap, is it safe to say that some patients, and I can only speak for the US, but maybe in the UK as well, maybe they feel like overly terrified, or maybe they don't want to let go of that social network at the clinic. What's your take on that?
So I do think we face things like that here as well.
Okay.
I do think there are people who kind of feel more safe in the hospital environment, so they will continue in center. I think some have built that friendship and that kind of core of people that they generally see when they go and have their sessions. And I can understand why some patients would choose that, and they have that kind of safety in mind. So there are currently a few kind of trials going on here where you can do nocturnal in center. So you can do an evening shift in center. So you still get those longer hours, and you still have the professionals around. So that could possibly be one way to kind of hurdle one of those hurdles. I think when it comes to friendships and cohorts and people that you generally see a lot, I guess part of me is thinking, especially during we had this worldwide pandemic, a lot more people going in center generally were more vulnerable to getting COVID than home patients. So there is that kind of thing to also think about. Like, okay, you may not see them in person, but you can still call them. You can still video call them. You can still Zoom with them. You can still Teams with them, etc. But also, you're not as much as a risk doing your dialysis at home than you would be in center, for example. So that could be one other point of view as well to take on board. There will be some patients who are just like, nah, I'm done. I'm coming in center. I'm coming 3 times a week. I'm doing my 4 hours and separate. Hospitals that way, my family life's that way. And that's their prerogative. And if that's what they want to do, fair enough. All we can do is present the correct information to them, give them the choices that they want. And then at the end of the day, it's up to the person and their circumstances, their situations. But you can always just give as much information as possible, and let that. And I think also let that information absorb to each patient individually. So if you have a patient who is, I don't know, hard of hearing, for example, you might have to repeat that information a few times. Or if English isn't their first language, you may have to explain it in maybe more lay terms or simpler terms. If you have a patient who potentially has a learning difficulty, for example, again, you may have to repeat it a few times, make it more simpler, maybe bring a carer on board or a parent or a loved one, etc., and explain it to them as well. So everyone's getting the correct and right information to their level.
Oh, great. That's great.
But yeah, I think we still have that here, but I think if we're able to educate everyone to a level where they're understanding it, I think that works probably the best.
You know, it's funny because
great answer. That's a great answer.
Yeah, it's funny because you brought up that situation, and I always had a technique when I worked in center on how to educate people on home, and it was usually around, the minute you hear a patient complaining about something like their chair time being delayed or their ride not showing up on time. And that's where it was like, well, you didn't have to come in today. You wouldn't be sitting here waiting for your ride. But I think you pointed out a very key point in that, I think a lot of times people just don't have all the information. I think for me, like that's a perfect point, Fez. It's like just keep providing the education, and when it makes sense. I know one of my friends that is a patient advocate here in the States, and he used to say all the time, he's like, the opportunity to take on a home dialysis option is like, a window. It's a window in time, and windows open and close throughout your life. And it's always about getting that right information, that right conversation when that window is open for a patient to be able to go through it, and there's a lot of truth to that, I think, because certain situations cause us to think differently about different things. And I think as long as we're doing the best we can to make sure people have all the information and they understand everything, and they're not buying into myths and misconceptions or being scared off by their own, the devil in their mind, kind of playing games with them and telling them, all these things. Oh, well, you don't want to do it this way, or you don't want to do it that way. This is scary. This is dangerous. Having the right information and accurate information is always a key to making sure people know what they're supposed to do. So, I see Desiree Cook always said, always be your own patient advocate. Having family and friends help keep you in a positive mode. You can do anything. You've made it through, Fez, with your positivity. Thank you for information we can all use and pass it on. And I agree with that. I agree with that 100%. I mean, Fez, you've managed to keep yourself positive and look for opportunities to not just be positive, but to spread your positivity to other patients and people out there. So I think that's an admirable thing, and I look forward to hearing more out of you as you get bigger in this platform. I see it happening. Like D said, Dwelyn said, this is your interview for the world, right?
That's right. That's right. We Fez, we like to say that to everyone, because whenever we decide to do this show, Rich and I, we have like me and Rich talked for like 3 hours one night, I remember, but prior to Rich coming on. And I basically told Rich that Rich, I can't do the show without you, because one, I think you and I mesh well together, and I said, and I can gain knowledge, a lot from Rich. I've known Rich for a few years and quite some time, even though it was just on LinkedIn, but I consider Rich a friend, also a mentor as well. So I said, we are the Kidney Trails. What we want with our show to try to set us above the rest is, we want individuals just to tell their story. We don't want to debate. We don't want to disrespect. We don't want to name drop, because when we use our professional platform, the world is always watching. We all live in a fishbowl. And why not, with this platform, bring some positivity, agree that we disagree, and etc. And my man, I think that you killed that fly with a sledgehammer with your humor, with your willingness, your drive, and your honesty, because you just let everyone know, hey, this is who I am. This is my elevator speech. And you specifically said, I want to go international. You know what I'm saying? And, somebody is always watching. I want to thank you for that, my man. And we appreciate you. Rich, I see we have 2 more questions for Fez. I want you to answer these questions to him and see where it goes,
Yeah, you know where I'm headed, because I really like this next question, because I mean, a lot of times people outside look, like you said, looking in that fishbowl, will determine for us sometimes what our biggest accomplishments are, right?
Right.
I mean,
right.
But internally, personally, I'm sure there's a big difference between what other people see as a great accomplishment and then what you yourself feel is a great accomplishment. So I guess the question in use Fez is, what do you feel like has been your greatest accomplishment throughout your journey?
Take about a minute or so.
I don't know. There's been quite a few things.
Right.
Learning to catheterize, learning to have my bloods done without numbing cream, learning to cannulate, learning all these different modes of dialysis, going through 3 transplants, dealing with all the side effects, managing with the support, obviously, of going on holiday whilst on dialysis. There's so many. And yes, there has been support with some of those things, but some of those things I've had to learn and live with. But there have been so many, being, an organ donation ambassador and spreading the word of organ donation here in the UK. That I think is really important. It's Organ Donation Week tomorrow on Monday till the 2nd.
Oh, right.
Here in the United Kingdom. So I think it's really important to talk about organ donation, the law change, how that affects people, talking to different communities, a wide range of people. There's so much stuff that's happened in my life that I don't know which one would be my top, if that makes sense. Being chair of our plan is such a privilege and honor. There's so many things I've been really privileged to be involved in and being accepted in being part of Kidney Research UK as a volunteer for them as well, being part of patient advocacy groups for different kind of researches that are happening and seeing what's happening behind the scenes, so to speak, different studies that are going on that I've learned about, and I'm like, oh wow, that's exciting, that's really cool, I can't wait till people find that out. There's so much stuff, and there's still so much I can learn, and there's still so much that I can find out and probe at. So it's every day is a school day, as they say. So there's still, so much that I can find out and know about. Like, yes, I'm UK based and I kind of have a decent grasp at what happens here in the United Kingdom, at least. But take me out of the UK and I might not know as much with how things work. So it would be nice to learn, like, okay, so how does that system work, or how does it work in that place, or because it's interesting, but it's also it's interesting to learn and to compare and see what places do what and what would work here and what would work there, and it's just all learning, really. But yeah, I don't know if I could pick a favorite best moment, so to speak, because there've been so many little milestones and then big milestones. Like, even though someone might not think of it as a milestone, there used to be a time when I was younger where I liked playing pool. I still do. And snooker, like cue sports. But I'd have a cannula in my hand, so I couldn't use it so I had to play the opposite way. Not for long, thankfully. And again, I'm not very good, but I could do it. Like, at the end of the process, like, I could kind of do it with my other hand. And at the time I was like, cool. Like, when you're 9-10 years old and you're like, oh wow, I can do this with my other hand, that's so cool. I've not done it for a long time, so I don't know if I can still do it, but needs must. And it's just something I had to try and practice at and see if I could do it. So yeah, even little things like that no one really thinks about. It's just everything really is. It's been a crazy ride, and I wish I could write all my little stories into like a book and like send it off to people and be like, this happened this day. I don't know what my favorite would be. I think qualifying as a youth worker was really big for me as well. It gave me that peace of mind. I think that
yes,
mental health, especially when I had to withdraw from university. The support I got from my family as well during that time was massive. So yeah, there's just a multitude of things really.
Oh wow, man, that's well. Hey, man, there's nothing wrong with having many accomplishments because there is some for some of us. It's not just one. Rich, Rich, I see we have another question, and we got 5 minutes. I really like this gentleman. Let me tell you something. It's not that I don't like any other guests. Before Rich asks you this question, I want to ask you a question.
Sure.
What's your favorite song? What's your theme song?
Well, when I watched the show, I did mention the song on the show. I commented on, so I could use that again, I guess.
Okay.
So I guess the Kanye song, Stronger.
Oh yes, yes.
I know it has a sample of Daft Punk in it. But yeah, I think, that doesn't kill me makes me stronger. So I guess that phrasing kind of helped a lot for me. If I had longer to think about it, I could probably make you a track list of about 20 songs.
Right. That's all of us. That's all of us. Yeah.
I think on top of my head, that's probably the first song that comes to mind immediately.
Right.
So probably that in this exact moment. I guess if you ask me tomorrow, it might change. But currently, that's the one that popped into my head.
I hear that. Dr. Yolanda Garrett says, no one would even suspect you had kidney disease. She said, Fez, you are also a great patient and home dialysis advocate. She said, as a doctor, hearing patient stories helps me so much to understand. Thanks. And Douglas Carr says, Fez, you are the man.
So me and Doug actually know each other.
Okay.
Doug.
That's awesome. Look at that. Fez is expanding our audience. How do you like that?
There you go. You're going international, man.
Yeah. So the last question that I have on my list here is, do you have a favorite book or story that you like, and how does that really tie it into your life?
Oh wow. So admittedly, I'm not a massive reader. I do prefer comic books and graphic novels. If I'm
okay. We have one.
Yeah. I guess for books, This Is Going to Hurt by Adam Kay was quite hilariously funny, but also very touching. That has also been turned into a BBC series now. So I don't know if it's available over there, but it's on iPlayer for all you UK people. Also, a book by a comedian that lives in the UK called The Secret Diary of a British Muslim, aged 13 3/4. And it kind of chronicalizes his life till that age, till he was about from 13 3/4 onwards. That's quite funny. I really enjoyed that. I kind of have a little bit of a dark sense of humor. So anything funny, anything a little bit twisted, I kind of can get into. So there's a Jeffrey Dahmer show on Netflix currently.
Yes. Yeah, I think we all been watching it. Yes.
Yeah. Yes. I got told about that the other day. So I'll probably be binging that at some point this week.
Yes.
And everything else. So yeah.
Excuse me.
So yeah. I guess those would be the two main books. So This Is Going to Hurt by Adam Kay, and then the one by Tez Ilyas, that's the author's name, and it's called The Secret Diary of a British Muslim, aged 13 3/4. And if we're talking comic books, we might be here a while, so we might run out of time.
Right, I hear that. Speaking of graphic novel, Fez, I had the honor and privilege to author a graphic novel, and Rich was one of my first buyers. We would be working on that for ebook form, so that way it can get to everyone, and it's much easier and faster for delivery. So we'll make sure that you get one as well. Man.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem at all. So fellas, man, this time went by quick. Oh my goodness. So any last words from you, Fez and Rich?
Fez, take it away.
Yeah.
So I guess as it's organ donation week next week here tomorrow officially in the United Kingdom, I think I would really like to say to talk about your organ donation decision with your family, because at the end of the day, when it comes to your passing away, and inevitably that's going to happen for all of us at some time, your family are always communicated with. So it's very important that they know your wishes. And I guess that would be one of the last things I'd like to say, especially as it's a poignant week next week. So really, please do communicate with your families what you wish to happen when it comes time to your passing. And generally, I think seek information. Ask questions. No question is a stupid question, whether it's your health or your life or whatever it might be. Ask people stuff. Because if you don't ask, you're never going to find out. So just ask stuff.
Right. I hear that. I hear that. Man, that's great.
Yeah.
Richie, any final words, my man?
Yeah, no, I'm coming to Abilene, Texas, starting tomorrow. I'll be flying into Dallas, Fort Worth, and driving to Abilene for the week. And so if you see me out there, say hi and introduce yourself. And everybody, I just want everyone to have a great week and safe travels in all of their journeys, and really have a really blessed week next week.
That's great. That's great. That's great. Well, gentlemen, I didn't want this to end, but Fez got to go put his pajamas on and get ready, because here in the United States, it's only 12:30, and there, man, it's 8:30 by now, correct?
Yeah.
So first and foremost, Fez, I want to thank you for coming all the way from the UK, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you, those of you who've been joining us. And like Rich and I said before, October is a very busy month for me, I can say. October 5th through the 7th. The Renal Health Association. Rich and I will be on a panel there in Indianapolis, Indiana. October 15th, I'll be in the Emerald City, Seattle, Washington, for the Northwest Gala, and I'll be one of the fourth muddler in the cocktail mocktail. And I'm also involved with PKD. I'm a PKD walk ambassador and peer ambassador. So therefore, we will have our PKD walk here in Tempe, Arizona on October 23rd. Man, my list is full. So Fez, this show, if I would make one saying, in the words of Gucci Man, if you can't keep it real, keep it to yourself. Ladies and gentlemen, from the innovator Richard Cabrera and Fez all the way from the UK, I am the glue. We would like to thank you for joining us. And ladies and gentlemen, have a blessed day. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.